So I just kind of want to make sure set the expectations on kind of our staff. Once you approve your bylaws, elect your chairperson. Our job is going to be just support. Provide you what you need. If it's details, if it's budgets, if it's research, if it's more public meetings, like whatever you feel like you need as a committee to do your job the best way you know how, that's our job, is to give you that, okay? We're not going to be trying to control things. We're just going to be doing our best to help you do your job and do your job well. The three funding challenges that you're going to be discussing and working on, I really think are some of the key, maybe the key issues to setting this city up for its future. Okay? I mean, this is not an exaggeration or hyperbole. 2035, 2040 rolls around. If we can get these three things right, those will be set for the future growth that's coming, right? It's going to happen. And so that we're not saying, they're not saying in 2035 and 2040, man, I wish they'd have made better decisions 10 years ago, right? That they're saying, instead of reacting to the growth, we're prepared for it, right? We've got the infrastructure, we have the people in place to take this city to the 30,000, to the 35,000, to the 40,000. Okay, that's coming, and so that's how I see this. And again, please don't hesitate. Whatever you need from us, it's a priority for our team to give you those things. And so I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The Municipal Funding Committee first meeting, April 3rd. It is 6:08. Do we have any public comments?
I'll go ahead.
Yes, sir. Tell me your name.
Joel Smith.
Joel Smith.
Drive.
Yes, sir.
Backs up to Shoal Creek. I know you know there's been issues out there for years, but I've heard on the news that you mentioned a couple other areas in town, didn't mention Shoal Creek. Jack's our representative, and so is Jordan O'Rourke. So I want to make sure that we are on the city's radar to do something about the flooding that's been going on there for 20 years. It really started when they started doing construction on the north side of the highway. Received nothing but lip service from the previous two mayors, actually the previous three mayors. I did see you get attacked on TV verbally right after you took office. It wasn't fair. It wasn't your problem. But I hope that you're going to help the city actually accomplish its goals and take care of the flooding issues once and for all. Property where I live probably should never have been approved. There was back in a time when city was growing, and I think a lot of heads were being turned the other way, and things weren't done right. Nothing that anybody in this room is responsible for, but it's certainly, in my opinion, the responsibility of the city to take care of its citizens. I've been here since 1997, around there, 6, 7, somewhere right around there. So this is my home. I'd like to make it my permanent home, but the continual flooding problems is an issue, and it's an issue when you wake up in the middle of the night and you see your house is surrounded by water. It's not a fun feeling. Fortunately, my home has never been actually flooded. It's been surrounded. It's just a matter of time. Tomorrow could be the day. Saturday could be the day. Really don't want to see that happen. Spend all day long throwing bags of sand around trying to shore up low areas. I just want to know what the city is actually going to do this time and not just give some residents lip service, because I've seen people come onto this council before, get their areas of flooding taken care of in their neighborhoods, and then they're off the council. I hope that our council now, and again, I haven't been to a council meeting in a couple of years now because I haven't found them useful for me. I hope the council now is going to take care of it. I hope this commission is going to seriously look at every location that's getting flooded here. Everything that comes down out of the sky runs right into the creeks. I know that's the goal here is to eliminate those problems, but, just wanted to hear what you folks had to say in the initial meeting, but I certainly wish you Godspeed and taking care of it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. You're always welcome at these meetings, and, we've never had a tool like this comprehensive, this plan, this, master drainage plan. We've never had that as a city. So, it's online, if you want to look at, or you can, I think if we can take,
I know it's online.
okay, so, 320 odd pages, but your area's on there, right? It's addressed specifically. So you'll see that. Any other public comments?
I'd like to say that you are on the radar between Jordan and I.
I know you are.
And I know how that area is back there, and I've seen really, really bad water come through there. The night that I moved in there, they found a lady down there at the far end that came from the freeway. That's how bad it is. But I've become friends with Jay, our water, stormwater guy, and he's told me that we're gonna work on it, so.
So first finding of this committee is that Jay Stake has friends. That's very positive.
You.
Any other public comments? Thank you. All right, so there's not any old business. This is our first meeting. First, the new business is the adoption of the bylaws that were in your packet.
I move for adoption.
I'll second. Okay, got a second, motion and a second to adopt the bylaws that are in your packet as your committee bylaws. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, second, on your agenda is election chairperson, and I have, asked her, and she said she'd be willing, and I would recommend that you elect, Councilmember Lisa Meyer as the chairperson, but if there's somebody that is just, has a burning passion to lead the committee, I'm sure she's willing to hear that.
I won't surrender.
No.
Make a motion to accept Lisa.
Second. Is there white flag?
All right, motion is made, hurry up before she backs out. Motion made and second to elect, Councilmember Lisa Meyer, chairperson of this committee. All in favor?
Gum and I.
Okay.
Jim made the motion.
Jim made the motion.
We also, Lisa brought it to my attention that we also need to talk about, vice chairperson and secretary.
Our bylaws,
That's right. Thank you.
might as well do it tonight.
I agree.
Oh, you're the chair.
That's right. All right, so motion, and a second to elect Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Lisa, so you have been elected chair, and so I'll turn over the meeting to you.
Really?
You didn't even have much prepared.
No, listen, go for it.
Let's move on. I take a motion, entertain a motion, a nomination for vice president, or vice chairman. Who is it?
I'd like to nominate Jim Irwin.
Well, might not be.
Too bad.
Cannot do that.
Is that a hard no?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm doing what I'm told to do.
Oh. We read between the lines.
47 years, yes, dear.
Okay.
You know, I'm honored.
Okay, I'll entertain another motion. Another nomination.
Already wasted my time.
Nominate Philip, if you're interested.
Pays big.
I
heard the pay's really good.
It's really good pay. Planning commission, but close to it.
Somebody make a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Now, how do we do the secretary? We,
I
That
also
checks to me at the, end of the
to
evening.
be secretary, but I don't know that if it has to be a committee member or not.
Are you qualified, are you bona fide?
I think so.
yeah.
Can you write? I can be secretary if she'll take the.
Yeah. Get all the credit for it.
Yeah.
What do the bylaws say about the secretary? Because for water sewer advisory, it has to be a staff member from the city.
It doesn't say.
I don't think it's that.
I think it's completely up to you.
I'd like to suggest that Jordan be our secretary.
Yeah, she kind of keeps up with us.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm.
Second that.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has it. Okay. Jordan, do you have meeting dates for us?
Yes. Ted, do you wanna go in?
Yeah.
If we want to go ahead and move on to, so as an ad hoc committee, you guys are assigned for a year. So that frames us in. We have 3 items for discussion. We have 1 for each member here. I recommend the quadruple method. And we will actually send these out electronically as a part.
Thank you.
And this is really merely a suggestion. If you'll notice right off the bat, the beginning starts in the beginning of March. We're now in the beginning of April, so we'll need to adjust the schedule as a result. We have certain timelines that we're trying to hit. For one, not to move on to the next topic of discussion, but we'll have the police and fire pension as the second topic as a result of this. If we decide, as a part of that funding mechanism, to use millage, there is a timeline as far as hitting that day, which that would have to be accepted and approved by the September council, which really needs to be the previous council that you vote on.
If it was gonna be 3 readings, it needs to be July, August, and September. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be, but with this kind of thing, it probably should be.
This is the Gantt chart method. At the bottom, you will see various, regularly scheduled council. They're in there as bullet points to kind of target. There's some suggestions about workshop dates, and those are actually recommended as workshop dates that you guys will involve the rest of council. You will report to council, and then also any other dates that you guys determine as a result of this meeting. If those are not on this, when you guys decide the calendar schedule, we will put this on this and email it back to you so that you'll have it for your record.
A lot to do in a year.
There is. So if you kind of notice that it's kind of split up in that you're going to review data as the first session, like Kim's going to be giving out the master drainage plan reports. Going to look at that, have a time to review it, come back and discuss it, and then start looking at funding options. Which case, and one of the reasons we picked the master drainage plan is it's the most advanced topic that we have. We've actually been involved with this for quite a while now, along with even starting to look at funding mechanisms for it. And then you get to the end point, like for example, as a suggestion, hopefully by the end of June, that we have a method in place that we can move on to the next topic. We will not begin the next topic until we're complete with the previous topic. Merely a suggestion. If something happens, obviously, it's nice knowing that you'll have solutions. There could be impasses, in which case you might have to move the date. Is that fair enough description of the?
What is the driving force for the 12 months?
The standard ad hoc committee that can be appointed by the mayor and council. That's the typical. After that, you may elect to re-up and have another series around.
Good job, Ted.
Thank you.
And it's part of our bylaws too, that we run for 12 months. And we'll be tired after 12 months. It's gonna be hard.
You will.
It's gonna be hard work.
Sure.
You just have no idea.
I would make a suggestion as a result of this first meeting, you at least pick the next meeting.
Yeah.
You might be tired after this meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I was thinking Thursday night's the best night for you guys?
Yeah, Tuesday or Thursday, fine.
We're usually better on Thursdays because we have committee and council meetings on Tuesdays. But there are some days that we don't have any.
Yeah.
It'll just be sporadic depending on the holiday season and everything.
Wealth of information.
So do we want to just plan our meetings for the year? Do we set a whole year or set a month?
That's completely up to you guys.
Next month would be May 1st. That's kind of the way I looked at it tentatively, first Thursday of each month. And there's a couple of months that, you know, we have to look at. But
Do we have to have a quorum every time?
it doesn't say in our bylaws. Does it?
I would imagine you would need a quorum to vote if you're recommending to council on solution.
Article 5, number 2.
Majority, simple
Yeah.
majority.
So first Thursday of every month for our
Yeah.
meetings?
Yes.
That'll, the Thursday in July is the third,
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be
would be one to maybe look at. the different-
Oh.
Everything else seems like it falls out pretty decent. I mean, it doesn't, doing the first Thursday pulls it away from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
So July, what's on the 10th? So July, move it to the 10th next week? So Scott made a motion, first Thursday?
I make a motion that we meet Thursday of each month, with the exception of July, the meeting on July being July 10th.
I would second that.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
At this
Now,
time, correct?
at 6
6
o'clock,
o'clock.
in the
All right.
fishbowl.
Thank you.
And you know that they call this the fishbowl. So there will be times that we will really want public input, and we will move out into the courtroom possibly, or a different location around town. So, because there's limited seating in here, and we want people to have access to information and be able to come and speak and hear what's going on, because we won't have the news media here all the time, hopefully.
You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. There's other things to do on Thursday night.
All the interviews.
Next up, Tim, Ted?
So to keep things interesting, I figured we'd read each page word by word. So, all right, so the comprehensive drainage master plan, which was done in 2 phases, it's taken almost 2 years, and we're finally kind of getting down to the final piece of it here. So, start. If you have looked at the 2025 budget, you would have seen this little description in it, and it breaks down how the phases of the master plan went. Phase 1 was data collection, initial drainage study, and current, future hydraulic modeling. So what does that involve? That involves a study area. So 3 basins make up the city of Bryant drainage basins, but if you'll notice, this pink area goes well outside of the city corporate limits. What we wanted to do is make sure we knew what was actually coming into the city and what was actually leaving the city and where it was going. We didn't feel it would have been justified just to do just the city limits. Eventually, the city's going to expand. There's going to be problems out there. We might as well, at first go have a very in-depth look at it. It also included, if you guys remember, we did the online survey where residents could write in about problems, whether it be house and business, road issues, yard issues, other issues, and it listed the streams. And then Garver, who did the study, gave it the little triangles with different colors on it to denote what each one stood for. And in the study, they also go through and they break it down by, it was a house or business with those, 7 reports of those, roadway, 44. So we had a pretty good response actually to this. We even got some outside in Alexander, but it's good to know anyways. Next page here. One of the other things they did is they went and got insurance claims and repetitive property insurance claims to bring in also for the study. So that was good information because sometimes we don't get everything reported to us. They request as-built. So they got our as-built for the city, drainage as-built. They also get the highway because obviously the highway passes through Bryant in multiple spots. And then the county as-built. So that was included. They use our city GIS and the stormwater points in there and also the streams and all that stuff. So this is the city's infrastructure, whether it was installed by us or it was previously county, we took it over. And then you'll notice towards the back, they went into the different creeks and created heat maps with different flood severity levels in them. So it'll have like 1, 2, and 3, and it's based off of flood events. So to bring that up, you know, everybody hears it was a 2-year event, or it was a 5-year event, or it was a 100-year event. That really breaks down to the chance that an event can happen in a year. So a 100-year event is a 1% chance that year. But one of the things to remember is the entire city may see rain, but you may have a portion of the city that has a 50-year event and a portion of the city that just has a 2-year event. So we have seen, you know, we're all kind of familiar with the general places that have flooding events, but every now and then we'll get something on a different part of the city and just has such an intensity for a short amount of time that it creates such a large event. And the drainage there wasn't put to handle it there, and we just haven't seen it happen yet. So it kind of opens our eyes up. Phase 2, this is kind of the one that everybody wants, and the reason it's thicker is because it lists all the projects and how much it costs. So, yeah, so this is the different models, current and moving forward. They develop and evaluate different methods of fixing it. Alternative hydraulic modeling, some places that are in the city, as this gentleman knows, that probably should have been mapped in a floodplain or floodway, and they're not. So, and then it was to develop the CIP, which is essentially how much the engineering is going to cost, how much the construction is going to cost for each individual project. And if you go to your agenda here, it's kind of the streamlined version. And in back, you'll see, we'll call it page 3. It looks like this. And this is the list that the city and Garver worked on for much of the larger projects. The city has a separate list that will be incorporated into this. And Rodeo at Shoal is on here. So, but you also see the dollar amounts assigned to those. And nothing on here is a quick feat by any means. There's that. Any questions on it? I'll speak fast because I'm nervous. So if you guys have any questions, tell me to slow down.
Great job, Tim.
Tell me to slow down, and I'll explain it to you. And so on the left-hand side, you see project prioritization. There's a little guide to that on the next page and how that was done. And then you see the types of flooding, if it's moderate, how it was rated, or what it needed to be rated moderate or major, and then the flooding frequency. Let's see. And so on.
The timeline for all of these projects would be up to 25 years.
Well, that'll be something, it'll really come down to what kind of funding is recommended and how many we can take on at once and pay bonds and loans back. One thing I did want to address, because it comes up every time we have a stormwater issue, and we've seen it at council, is you will notice on these lists, some of it is private drainage areas. One of them being Oak Glen, the one being Hidden Forest. We didn't want to just limit it to city drainage. We said, hey, we have a citywide problem, whether we own it or not. We need to look towards a solution for some of this stuff. So one of the hurdles we'll have to get to eventually is, once we figure out what projects we're doing, is do we purchase an easement? Do we get an easement? Is the city going to own it after that? So there's more involved than just the construction cost. If you flip to this page here, this is some of the city drainage projects that are currently on the list that is developed in-house. Two just off the top of my head that I'm very familiar with is 8 and 9. You'll see Stivers and lacrosse drainage. We just had 100% plans for those. Those are projects we will do in-house. Typically, if we bond or loan something out, the in-house crews cannot do the construction. It has to be done by a third party, so just a heads up for that.
With the in-house staff, what is their level of capability?
Good.
Good.
It's a little weird because, you know, when we talk about the standalone utility for stormwater, it's actually the streets group performing the work, because the stormwater group only consists of 3 of them are basically officers and inspectors. So they do our construction, active construction sites, subdivisions, developments, commercial, and then, of course, just the drainage throughout the city and the multiple outfalls.
That's a really important point. is you kind of think about when you get to street funding, okay? Right now, with stormwater being part of the street department, you've got street department resources taking care of stormwater. So if we can get to the place where stormwater is a standalone utility, that provides more resources for streets, just pulling them out from under streets, okay? And when you get to that point where you have a revenue stream that can fund payroll, equipment, and the ability to borrow against that revenue stream for major projects, it provides Tim and his team with all kinds of different options to take on future problems, right? It's not gonna ever be static. It's not gonna be, hey, we're done. And that's why if you can put in your head, and this is what part of the goal, how do we get to having a standalone utility for stormwater? How do we get there, right? We're not gonna get there by the end of, the next 3 years. Might not get there by the end of 5, but how do we get that moving in that direction? It helps. It's a major benefit to our street department to take care of this stormwater. And so that's kind of a part of the logic of why we're doing things the way we're doing.
Do we have a stormwater funding goal that we're trying to get to?
Yes. It's a little broad right now because we're narrowing it down, but the ultimate goal, like Mary said, is we need to be standalone and we need to have a stormwater group, not only who does our inspections, not only who maintains our permits and does the admin work, but we need a group who's going to do the stormwater construction and maintenance also. Because we're stripping employees out of the streets department to do these stormwater projects. Streets has, go drive a couple of roads, the north part of town, they have plenty of work. They need to be completely divided, and actually they're structured to be divided. So
as of today, you have 4.
Yeah.
What would be the ultimate goal as a team in stormwater?
What we'd like to see in the next 2 years is 3 more employees at a staff level and then a stormwater analyst, basically, who would do some of the financial stuff or most of the financial and budgetary work for that position, and then grow it from there. I don't think it's a fiscal responsibility to say, hey, we need X amount of dollars to put 10 people in there, buy all this equipment, and not have a real plan for the in-house stuff right now. You spend a whole bunch of money, and then we'd be figuring out after the fact. I'd rather have the plan and then find the money.
Just to follow up on what the mayor said, sometimes in city government, you tend to forget that once you make a capital investment, beautiful, well done, looks great, accomplishes the mission, but you tend to forget, or some forget, the O&M. You've got to make sure you have the in-house staff or consulting budget or contractor budget to make sure you can sustain and maintain what you just built. And I see our ultimate goals, if we're successful, at getting to the point where the city of Bryant has a self-sustaining stormwater fund, any transportation funds, much like water, much like wastewater, much like cities that have electric utilities, they are independently funded. And one of the benefits of that is it makes it, in terms of communication with the public, it makes it so much easier for the elected officials in particular to explain to the resident, how do you pay for this? Or you can explain that that fee on your utility bill is specifically designated for the transportation funds. That's how we generate the money, Mrs. Smith, or whomever. I think if we can accomplish that, beyond all the capital improvements, that'll be a major feat. Often it's forgotten. The O&M, you got to maintain what you've got is like a house.
And, it's a dream of ours that one day, every basin in the city and every creek in the city is always properly maintained, right? And that's going to take, because some of these basins right now don't belong to the city, and they're maintained by that neighborhood So, again, there's a lot of, those are things that are gonna take a long time, but it's that dream and that goal of, man, wouldn't it be great if all these creeks and basins, the city had enough funding, enough staff, enough know-how, I think we got the know-how, to take care of all these. And it's just as things have developed, right, it's been piecemeal.
But my understanding is, on the planning commission side, what I've seen is these retention ponds, whatever you want to call them. The city says it's not our responsibility, and then the homeowners say it's not our responsibility. And then now, last time I heard, the city does not want any detention pond maintenance to do. Is that correct still?
I'd take them all if I could fund the maintenance for them, but I can't.
I mean, that was
another thing that.
problem we had was how you going to take care of them.
Yep, 100%
So
right.
it went back to the homeowner association, the ones who had homeowner association. I do have a question, Tim.
Yes, sir.
How many of these projects have to deal with the Corps engineers?
All of them.
And I know the problem we've had with the Corps engineers, Hurricane Lake, Rodeo and all that is don't want. Is that still the case?
No, so what the Corps says is you can restore the creek to the original flow line. I guess there's some
That's an imaginary
there,
line.
right? But, we've had, all of our past projects, when it's dealt with the Corps, at least the past 3, 4, 5 years, we've had some really good luck. I think part of that's hiring the right engineering firm that does all the details and applies for the permits and all that good stuff. But, I mean, even Parkway dealt with the Corps, so it might be a long process, but the communication's there, and we have a pretty positive feedback.
Yeah. So I know past history, when we've had trouble at Bishop Park and Rodeo and all that, is because bauxite is down the river, down the creek. And we could not overload that creek, so that will eventually flood bauxite out. So we had railroads, crossroads we had to get through and all that.
So I don't know how far we want to get into the weeds, but basically there's a rule out there that says you can't cause a rise upstream or downstream. So the water level's supposed to stay the same. When we went through this, so Catherine McCoy is actually the hydrologist and hydraulics engineer who went through this. She's very familiar with all that, and that's one of the things she took into consideration the whole time. That's one of the reasons Boone Road is so expensive to fix in front of Bishop. You can't, to do almost anything but the apartments up north. So.
And then I know we've had a lot of problems north of town coming into subdivisions that's been developed because.
It rolls downhill.
Right.
Like I said,
And it's affected this gentleman over here. All that
the
development
study
up
went
north.
way outside the city limits to make sure as we design projects and construct them, we're taking into that consideration and the future development.
Awesome.
On the stormwater retention, is that the issue of, like when you have POAs or something, that they take responsibility?
They used to be put into a POA or HOA. Now they're put into an improvement district, so they have a funding source.
Yeah.
But they're still responsible.
Majority of them,
Is
yes.
that common in Arkansas or Saline County, like Benton, bauxite?
To speak for Bryant, I know it's been common since we've been here. We've had internal discussions about, how do we fix this? Because again, it's a problem within the city.
Right.
Who created it is kind of irrelevant. It's a problem that needs to be solved. So
And
we've had some,
Are there a number of areas where that's really been a pronounced problem?
yeah, oh, yes.
Nobody knows.
If we had the staff,
Right.
we could make agreements with those improvement districts. That they fund it, we maintain. If you get a standalone department, it opens all your options, stuff we just can't do right now.
Right.
But we've had conversations with improvement districts, and they would love that, that they provide the funding, we provide the maintenance.
In fact, there is a subdivision close by that, the taxes were not paid and foreclosed on, and they were sold to a gentleman who did not realize it was a retention pond. And when he found out that he had to take care of it, I guess he gave it back to the city or county, whatever it was.
So would it be fair to say that one of the things we want to accomplish is to, as we talk about self-sustaining stormwater fund, we want to create a revenue stream that incorporates that so that we can resolve these issues, so that we don't have these conflicts. And so the city is in control of the stormwater system.
I would agree with you, yeah. One of the conversations we've had is we don't have the staff to clean everything, but we do have the staff to manage contracts. So we can find a source and find 1, 2, 3 companies, whatever, to maintain this group of basins, that group of basins. We can do the staff, we can manage the contracts, and we can do the inspections.
So the staffing part of this is important.
Yes, oh, very important.
Very important.
So, but, you know, that doesn't need to be the long-term solution. We do need,
Funding is the long term.
but, again, we could get into the weeds all day, and I didn't really realize I rolled right into 4, into 5 with the in-house stuff, so.
Are there any grants?
So, I don't know if you remember, but, so yes, there are grants. Typically, they're about 300,000, they're 80-20 match. For several years, we were getting them, one after another, after another, after another. So what, previous mayors released $1 million from general fund. We were able to put that towards a set of projects, and then we got grants for those projects. So we subsidized that 300, and we took this pot of money and we moved over here. Then we got another grant for this one. Then we moved over here. But every time we moved, that pot of money got smaller and smaller and smaller. And we hadn't been denied a grant up until the last one. And all of a sudden, they said no, not that we fit all the qualifications, but things are going to get, or have been getting a lot more competitive because, you know, that's why you guys are here. We're looking for funding. Everybody's looking for money.
And that money's coming from the state or federal?
So,
In Saline County, or let's say Central Arkansas, how common is, I'll just make it up, a stormwater utility fee? Are we similar to every other community?
there are other ones around, like Hot Springs has one.
Rock.
Little Rock, yeah. So there's other ones around. It's not uncommon. What's uncommon for Bryant is we actually have an MS4 standalone utility, and there is not a whole lot of those in the state of Arkansas.
Say it again.
We have an MS4 municipal stormwater sewer system standalone utility. So it's been, this is previous to me, but it was billed as basically an enterprise fund like water and wastewater. So it has to fund itself by law. So that's kind of the move we have to move forward with.
And we currently have a stormwater fee.
$3 residential, $6 for commercial. Now there's senior citizens who don't pay. There's other.
Yeah, can you kind of paint a picture of kind of where our stormwater department is now as it's funding? And
let's move into 6, which is draft budgetary operations. So if you flip over to this page right here, it says Stormwater Utility Fund. This is the projected revenue for the 2025 budget that we will take in this year just under the utility fund. Now, the utility fund can only be spent on certain things, and one of those things is stormwater projects. It can't fund personnel or anything like that. So you'll see it cannot fund personnel. It can only fund projects, the utility fee.
By state law?
By ordinance and law, I believe.
By state law?
Definitely ordinance. I'm not sure about the state law. But what you'll see pretty quick is it doesn't generate a whole lot of money to begin with. So, for 2025, we plan for stormwater in lieu fees, which is basically when a development comes through and they don't necessarily have to do stormwater detention or retention. They pay a fee just in lieu of that. And then stormwater residential, you see that's about $258,000. That's what we anticipate on creating or getting for revenue through the year of 2025 from residential houses of that $3 fee once a month.
And how's that billed? Is that billed to your just standard water?
On the water bill. And then you'll see the business section, we're looking at making $46,800 for this year, and that's the $6 fee that all businesses, regardless of size, pay the same fee.
I thought it'd be a lot more than 46,000.
7,800 businesses is that rough math of 46,800 divided by $6.
Yeah.
But that's that's per month, right? Yeah. So I need to divide that out some more, okay.
So now for 2024, for residential, we budgeted 244,000, we actually took in 260,000. But on the flip side of that, for commercial, we budgeted 46,800, which is the same. We budgeted for 2025, but we only took in 34,924. That's barely, was actually under $300,000. I haven't seen a large stormwater plan or project for under $300,000 in 4 years.
When was the $3? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did we lose businesses, or we didn't collect it, or?
Basically always budgeted at the 46.8, we rarely adjust it.
When was the $3 fee first started?
2015.
And has it been adjusted each year by the?
It has never been adjusted.
No. Actually, at one time, the residential business was the same.
So, yeah.
But that's a possibility, right?
So, yeah, we'll talk about that in one more second. I just want to run.
Finally, they did start doing the business separately.
Go through the rest of the budgeting stuff before we talk about the fee. So if you flip the page, you'll see, again, stormwater utility funds.
Yeah.
And you'll see it says utility fund surplus or deficit, and you'll see there's $1.4 million in there. That is not a surplus. That is the leftover ARPA money that we got, that has already been, it's being spent right now on 3 projects up off of Spring Hill and Stillman. Each one of those projects is about $500,000. So that money is already spoken for. That is not a surplus. Want to make sure everybody sees that, doesn't go, oh, well, they need to take up $1.4 million. What are they spending that on? We're spending on stormwater. We started last year. And those 3 projects will drain that amount of money. All right, we go over this where it says Fund 080 Street Fund. This big long one. That is the line items for the stormwater budget. But you'll notice it says 0800140. 080 is a streets account. 0140 is a designation for stormwater. This money is coming out of the streets budget. It is paying salaries, it's paying travel, it's paying the insurance, the supplies, it's paying everything that does not allow stormwater to be a standalone utility. Now, it's $636,000 for this, which isn't, a huge amount when you start looking into these project costs, but it is $636,000 that's coming out of streets that can't go to fixing any streets.
Does the street department manpower and the 4 employees?
This is just those 4.
Oh.
This is our current stormwater
Yes.
operations. And is it fair to say this, the operations comes from the street, the budget?
Yeah.
The maintenance comes from the fee. Is that fair? Is the way to think about it as far as a big picture?
Yeah, the fee is used to replace or upgrade stormwater infrastructure. The actual maintenance of the stormwater system is the streets guys. They do it. Because
That comes out of the street.
we don't have enough stormwater guys.
And so, for clarity, what you're sharing with us right here is that this is the street fund, but the money is all going to stormwater.
Correct.
So what funds do the street?
Street has a totally separate budget.
Okay.
They would be 0800850.
Okay.
So it's completely different.
Okay.
If you look in the 2025 budget and you go down to streets, you'll see a revenue and expenditures category. And then you go down to stormwater, you'll see revenues that's basically empty and an expense. They're not producing any revenue to pay for themselves.
The street department is funding itself and the stormwater department. Tim, if you could just, guesstimate, right? If you were to say, we got, 300 and something thousand a year that comes from the, fee, right? From our stormwater fees, 324.
We're looking at budget 324, yeah.
Right now, we're getting 600,000 and change. from the street department. So somebody good at math, a million and change is where we stand as a as a stormwater department right now. That would be our O and M for where we are right now. Is that?
And that's as of projects today. That doesn't,
That's not progress.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Revenue.
Yeah. But that just covers cost as of today, not anything,
Just covering staffing,
yeah, moving
And-
forward.
some of the operations.
None of this.
Yeah.
And the funding mechanism for this page here is sales tax, right?
It's
Isn't it
it's a
designated
portion,
tax?
yeah. There's a designated and there's a portion, but, yeah.
So was that, when you say designated tax, was that something approved by the voters?
Yeah, it was, the street department gets,
0.5%, 1%.
yeah, a piece of one of the pennies. So you get 3 pennies. 2 of those pennies are designated, one's general fund, and
They get a portion of state turnbacks too.
Yeah.
So we know, one of the approaches I like to use and used is, we know what we do now.
Mhm.
So now we've got this study, and we've talked a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish. So, as Public Works Director, if you could start with a blank legal text and create a system based on your experience here and your knowledge of what the needs are, where should we be? How much revenue annually should the city of Bryant be producing to support the expenses? When I say expenses, I mean O and M.
Yeah.
And capital. If you could budget so much money and.
I don't wanna say a dollar.
Well, one thing we have to understand, there are some areas in our city that does not pay any sales tax when someone buys something online because their address is Alexander.
Right.
Correct?
well, I think Mayor Sanders, when she was in office, dug into that, and as far as the last I understood, we tracked all that down, and right now, if you're in the city limits of Bryant, the sales tax is coming to us.
At one time, it was not like
It
that.
was, exactly, but
Right.
she
You had address by address,
she
didn't you?
did it, she dug in and made that happen.
Well, then why we're buying so much, we wouldn't get anything from him.
Stormwater fund's funded by itself, just on my wife's Amazon
Yeah.
purchase.
So that was part of our issue, is we were not getting sales tax for online orders, merchandise delivered.
So, and like I said, not everybody's paying the stormwater rate, not that, it's not enough anyways. But to follow up, Mr. Staples, with what you were saying, it's basically number 7, which is the ongoing rate analysis, which started about 15 months ago, which sounds crazy, but really it's dependent on this, and no fault to Garver or our own, but like any, as we had the original scope, and then we were like, oh, we should add this. Oh, we should add this. So it took a while, but we really did want to be really detailed in the first one coming out.
So Tim, in the areas around us, or to your knowledge, what other towns have a stormwater fee? Part of the utility?
There's quite a few of them that do. Actually, the firm that we hired for ours is the same one who did the firm for Hot Springs, and they're standalone.
And what do they charge per month?
It's a tiered system based off of impervious area. Really, the residential side will be a fixed fee. The commercial side will be based on, how much impervious area you have, and it's usually square feet. So 0 to 1,000 square feet is one rate, 1,001 to 2,000 is a different rate, and that's how it'd be developed.
Ours is just a flat fee.
Ours is 3 and 6.
So there's room to make changes.
Well, I think this is a lot of information. We wanted you to have this so you could kind of digest, get your head around this first piece of, here's what we gotta pay for, right? This is what, if we're gonna have a standalone utility, and then the rate analysis we do with wastewater and water, right? We've got to do this. This is what it costs to keep those utilities up, so that equals these rates. It's a simple math problem. And so that's what'll be next, okay? Making sure you've got plenty of time to look at this information, ask any questions, meet with any of us whatever you need to do, and then we come to you and say, okay, based on these numbers of what it's gonna cost, that's the rate analysis. That's what, will come next. How's it gonna get paid for? And the logic behind it has to be concrete data, of what projects we're gonna do, what our staff's gonna look like, what equipment we need, all those things.
So the rate analysis is underway,
Yes, sir.
in-house or by contract?
Contract.
And who, are that Gardner doing that?
No, that's a company by the name of Wildan,
And what is their timeline?
waiting on us to finalize.
Are we restricted by what our wastewater fee would be by government regulation?
Not that I'm aware. Really, your fee will be based off of how you want to grow the department, what your O&M cost is for existing and new infrastructure, and what projects you want to do planned out for the next, whether it be 10 years, 20 years, whatever. So, because we're going to have to fund a bond, so.
So, Tim, and kind of what needs to happen, this study needs to be approved by council, but we didn't want you, we weren't gonna ask you to recommend this to council tonight, right? And once that's officially embraced by council, this is what we're gonna do, that gives the rate study its leverage to say, okay, City of Bryant, if you're gonna do this, you need to charge this. You need to pay for it this way. Does that make sense?
The city council is gonna adopt plan as a planning document, much like you did the Parks Master Plan fairly soon.
Well, what we would hope that you would recommend it to this committee would recommend to council the adoption of this, master plan. And so that's why we wanted to give you plenty of time to look it over and not feel like we're asking you to adopt something, recommend something that you haven't really had a chance to.
Looking down the road, I know one of the things we're gonna need, because I'm, like most, I'm anticipating from, the public, since they'll have to pay the bill, is what do others do? That's just a 101 question. Okay, well, that's a question you're gonna get in the grocery store. And I would say for Central Arkansas,
Okay.
That's why I was asking that
So,
question.
We can have that.
that's something
One
that
of,
needs to be.
yeah, one of the things we'd like to do is basically have a presentation by the company that's doing the rate analysis and by Garver for you guys.
They'll do that.
Yeah, they are the experts in that, so.
Okay.
So are there you mentioned Hot Springs, but there are none of our neighbors
sure
around
they-
have.
Benton has one.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting, I think.
I would say within a 50-mile, 100-mile
Yeah.
radius maximum.
Have.
Yeah, we'd like to see Cabot and Sherwood and North,
Mm-hmm.
That are our size.
And it's possible that they may end up in that rate analysis that they provided is that very thing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'll almost guarantee it will be in there.
Yep, there'll be a lot more information to come.
Like we're always talking about funding, aren't we?
That's what we're supposed to do.
Overall, city.
Yes, we are.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, which, my experience, the flat fee for commercial developments, that is insane.
Yeah.
The $6.
Regardless of size. correct.
So I hope I'm wrong, but you're telling me Walmart pays $6 a month?
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
that wealthy businessman down there pays,
We were gonna start asking him for donations.
like John should be paying
Should be-
$20 a month.
We're doing our
Amazon purchases.
It should be
It's fine.
But it was very challenging when the city requested, the council requested this floodwater, stormwater fee to start with.
Right.
It was an uprising, because it was, like I said, it was both the same residential as commercial.
Well, and again, I know I keep saying this, our goal is that as we vet, you guys talk about this and we have these public meetings, that it's not a surprise, that no one's surprised. And if the feedback we get from our community is, no, do not do this, that, we want to hear that, but at least everybody knows, as many people as are willing to engage with us, that we're working on this and we have a plan. Now, they may reject the plan, but at least they know we're working on it and trying to move forward.
You told people out here is, oh, Bryant's got plenty of money. I'm just looking at them like, you need to come and visit, exactly know how much money we have.
Would we be able to adjust the elderly and all that with all this?
That'll be a decision you guys will make.
Yeah, that was the,
Homestead,
no, that fee that doubled people's water bill. last
That
year.
was the outside city limit fee.
No, it's not the.
The infrastructure fee?
Yeah.
The old $8.95 that became $15.
Well, look, we weren't even getting it for
I know we weren't
15
getting,
years.
yeah.
But
But
that's-
for senior, people,
Yeah.
that one person in the household, senior
Yeah.
citizens, it doubles their water bill.
It also, it's a good point too, because that $15 when the ordinance was blessed by council, it can only pay for water and sewer, bonds and loans. So it all goes to capital improvement projects, all of it.
I understand.
Yeah, so
But
it's,
it hit the wall of the
I'm sure.
senior citizen.
anytime you look at your water or sewer bill, you go,
Well, and hopefully, again, as we put this information gets out there and you see the amount of money.
but what I
These
like is
projects
other
cost.
towns are now having issues with their sewer, and they have to spend big bucks to bring it up to code.
Our infrastructure's, sewer and water infrastructure's in good shape.
It wasn't.
I think one of the mistakes, cities make mistakes all the time, but in the time I've lived here, I think that I've noticed that when the city's preparing a budget, just like you look at expenses every year, you've got to look at your revenue streams in your rate structure. Your water rate, your wastewater rate, building permit fees. You know, your cost of expenses are tracked by inflation typically, or labor costs. But cities don't look at the other side of the ledger. And of course, the reason they don't is because obviously it's politically disadvantageous to do that. Why are you raising my water rate? Well, because, you know, milk's gone up, gas has gone up, so has the cost of maintaining the water system. And so I think that ought to be, that's a policy issue where, as a matter of policy, I think the city powers to be should say, okay, every year, we're gonna look at everything.
We've got some flooding to deal with here shortly.
Yeah. Leak.
The benefit for council, I used to say to council members, well, look at it this way. When you adopt the budget, you get it over with. And I used to go into cities where they would change the rates during the year. So they would inflict pain on themselves 12 times a year.
Yeah, instead of once.
And I'd say, well, maybe you're into pain. But I said, my first suggestion as your manager is that, why don't we just do this once?
Right.
You know, at the December council meeting, you pass an ordinance adjusting, I remember having 12 or 15 consent item agendas that had all been reviewed and discussed. You know, rate, change this rate, change this rate, change this rate, and then you're done. People get used to it, and they expect that. But when you hit it at them, or worse yet, when you don't change something for 14 years, and then when you try to explain, well, you know, we haven't done this, I don't care, it's gone up 76%. It don't matter what you say.
Right.
They don't think like that. But they can handle incremental, 2.3%. Something reasonable. It's almost play like you're a business, you know?
Would you raise it once a year, though?
Huh?
Would you raise it once a year?
If you needed to, and often you would, I mean, how often is it gonna be that your water expenses are not gonna go up?
Well, I think you have to go up because of requirements, changes,
Mandates,
chemicals.
Yeah, there's a host of reasons.
Yeah, it's
The
just
cost
not
has increased,
pulled out of your
but-
hat.
state and
Everybody
federal
agrees.
mandates,
Yeah.
labor costs, health insurance.
That's right, though. When we do our water and wastewater rates, it's every 3 years, we have to do an external rate study, and then we usually have them in place for a period of 5 years. in the ordinance, with then after that 3% going, just in case it gets extended for some reason. But we will go out every 3 years and do an external rate study. So,
Those are the kind of things that, you know, I'd love for this committee to be able to recommend to councils, a structure
Yes.
of go-forward plan that takes that into consideration. Because with the water and wastewater, those are dictated by state law, which are actually really helpful, right? It just takes it out of our hands. This has to be done. If you're gonna get these loans and take care of your system, you gotta do it this way. And so we wanna use and just hold ourselves accountable at, you know, our own ordinances that fit that so that it can continue to grow as the city grows. And
But the state, you really don't have a guideline on what it ought to be, do they?
the state released what they call Act 605 a while ago. I'm sure you've heard everybody talking about it, which is in regards to water and wastewater rates. And it basically says that when you have a rate study done, and it is you have to adopt your master plan, your water and wastewater master plan. You have to identify your capital projects for the length of those rates. And then they'll calculate your O&M and all that good stuff. And it basically says, this is how much it's gonna cost to do this. These are the rates you will adopt. And the state did that because of the whole political environment in some places that didn't raise rates. And all of a sudden, I mean, if you Google water and wastewater rates in Arkansas, you'll see municipalities, 100% increase.
this committee can make that kind of recommendation to council.
I bet the legislature did that. I can't say for sure, but because they recognized that cities around Arkansas were not properly funding their water, their wastewater. I know that would have been a problem in that city, because who wants to vote?
Increase.
Easier to
What
spend money
council
on a
member
park than something
wants
that's around.
to voluntarily say,
Yeah.
I'm very excited about what I'm about to do, you know? But, you know, leadership, you've got to do what you got to do.
But a lot of people would not vote because they wouldn't get reelected. But,
Well, they'd have to announce, I'm announcing I will not be running for reelection.
but I think that's what happened to Fort Smith. I've been keeping up in the paper about Fort Smith. The rates are just going because of not taking care. And I think that's what happened here.
Right.
We had such an influx of growth. We did not
Yes.
move it as we went.
That would be a wise recommendation, right? Every 5 years or 3 years that we recommend a rate study. Make sure these rates are keeping up with the plan, and I mean, just put it in there, and then it holds us accountable to do our job.
It helps you when you go to identify projects too. You're not trying to identify 20 projects for 8 years.
Does the city have a contract with just a general engineering company that does?
Well, not just necessarily for this type of study.
Right.
Typically, for the independent third, we go out for bid on each one of those.
Okay. So I guess what I'm used to, that company, one of their tasks on an annual basis was, in the summer, we were on a calendar year budget like y'all. And in the summer of each year, or early fall, they would do their due diligence and come to us and say, based upon this, we recommend you raise this fee, that fee.
Currently, the ordinances wrote that every year, whoever the public works director is will come to city council and do a review of the fees and rates and make sure they're covering it. And then every third year, it's a third party.
Okay.
So it's
But they haven't
internal.
adjusted the rates every year.
Yes.
It would be up to
The
the
water and
public works.
wastewater rates have been adjusted every year. Stormwater is completely separate. We're kind of deviating to a different,
Okay,
so,
So they have to be standalone, correct? They have to be standalone.
right,
yes,
right.
yes.
So
You're-
water and wastewater have been,
Yes. Yep. Yeah, they get adjusted every year, so it's stormwater and
okay.
that does not. So like I said, the goal is not only to grow the department, but have a revenue that we can borrow money against, and we don't have that right now.
Based on what I'm hearing, I think we ought to
Yeah.
get to this tonight. Tonight's council meeting.
I have a question. On your it's on the page where your residential, stormwater in lieu fees, 20 cents, what is that?
So stormwater and lieu fees, if a development comes through and they're not technically required to do a stormwater improvement, say it's just a small impervious area of their building, it's like, the fee ranges on size, but it's generally like a $500 fee.
And that's paid per case. situation, Lisa? Comes to
Yeah,
me and says we want a waiver.
You'll hear in the DRC comments sometimes that, hey, there's no real reason to put this massive expensive detention or retention on this, just pay the in lieu fee based on the size.
How's that calculated?
All by an engineer, because it's all engineer math and not Tim math.
But I mean, is it changed based?
Yes, yeah, it's a tiered system.
I knew that back
If
when
it's
that.
very small, it's a minimum, like Tim says, it's $500. Say you have a 1 acre that you're making a little bit, and then it does look at what the runoff is gonna be before, what the runoff is gonna be afterwards, what structure you would have to build to withhold that. If it's small enough, we take that in lieu fee to use for downstream improvement.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, I got a question
Yes,
for
ma'am.
you. So I know we're talking stormwater, but when you said wastewater and we do a review, and what do those increases look like? Is it a certain percentage that voted on?
Usually right around 3%. Yeah, it's voted on.
Okay,
Yeah.
By council.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's usually around 3%?
That's usually what it's right around every year, yeah. The infrastructure fee has a 5% on it every year, but the rates are generally around 3%. Don't hold me to that, because with the Act 605 stuff coming out and this new rate study, I don't really know what they're gonna look like. But the rates aren't, like I said, they're not kind of a willy-nilly washy thing. You have to adopt your master plans, you have to identify your capital improvement projects, you have to identify the growth that you're gonna have in your department, then the growth of the city is identified, and they take flows in and the treatment plant and all that stuff. So, there's a lot that goes into it to afford that year rate. And they do have to be voted on by council. Like I said, the Act 605 thing kind of changes stuff now, because by, I think it's June of 2026, you have to have your new rates in effect.
That'll be part of our budget process this fall.
But
Tim, what do you and Ted feel like is the biggest challenge in wastewater, just the funding aspect?
wastewater, yeah.
I'm sorry, stormwater.
It's funding. It's funding. I mean, we can identify stormwater projects all day long. That's not hard to do. Go look at something that's not working right, but it's paying for it.
We've heard that, haven't we?
Paying for it, and everybody knows nothing is getting cheaper, and everything is skyrocketing cost. So,
And the same's gonna be true for transportation.
when I started here in 2018, a ton of asphalt was $76. A ton of asphalt right now is almost $180.
Good grief.
So, and that overlay budget hasn't changed much over the years, so the dollar amount even went up a little bit, might be doing less work with it.
How many detention ponds do we have in the city now?
Bunch. Every subdivision has one. Every business has one. Well, you're right.
I know the one by
I know a
Walmart,
couple that don't.
Walmart was almost full a couple weeks ago, and I had to pump it out. So much water.
Could be full again.
Well, and, part of it's the reason the one over by Walmart's full is because it's lost capacity over the years, because it hasn't been maintained, so it's got a bunch of silt and growth in it.
Right.
So, but also keep in mind, we want to talk about stormwater and the funding. Stormwater has changed drastically in the last few years in Bryant with the new stormwater manuals and the new requirements also. So without even having the funding source, we have looked for ways to create better stormwater in Bryant as we move forward and develop. So it's just.
You've done a great job.
Oh, yeah, it's so much better than it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd also use this opportunity to plug the House bill as a result of the adaptation of the FEMA rules that are required. Currently, there's a House bill that says that the cities can't make any more stringent requirements than are required of FEMA. Affects these issues.
FEMA updates how often?
Well, I think we're currently using the 2019 map.
It's Senate Bill 518. It went to committee today, and I've been looking for updates, and I haven't seen any yet, but Ted's right. Right now, we require 3 feet, FEMA requires 2 feet. This would take our limits away, and we'd have to follow the FEMA stuff, so it would go back to 2 feet.
Can you
For
explain what that is?
floor elevation. We make you build 3 feet above, FEMA makes you build 2 feet above. We feel better 3 feet above because we've seen what happens in Bryant when it rains sometimes. So this would take the city's, options to change that. You'd be stuck to whatever FEMA says, rather than be able to develop your own.
Is it
Even if
past the
you
house?
flood?
What's that?
Even if you flood?
Syndic committee today.
Part of this study is we will end up remapping part of the cities, which will put.
It's already passed the House to the Senate.
Has it already gone through the House? I think it's
Still in committee.
it started in Senate. I think it's in Senate and going.
And that was at 10 today, and I still haven't seen an update, and I didn't get to see it, and we didn't have anybody there, so.
Do we know what the positions are of our delegation? Are
We've encouraged them to say no.
we trying to find out?
We are. In
Yeah.
fact, our H&H
Yeah.
person is actually the one that's updating us
Mhm.
with the current.
Okay.
what's been on.
Yep.
Mayor, are you looking for the committee to recommend the acceptance of this report now, or?
I would say, we wanted you to take it with you or look it online, just,
Okay.
and we're following kind of a pattern that Tim and them have used with the water sewer advisory. Give them at least a month to process the report and everything, the study, before we ask you to make a recommendation to council. So, yeah, next meeting, that would be something I'd love to see on the agenda.
You want that done by May, the May meeting?
If you're ready, if you feel good about, because again, acceptance of this plan drives the rates.
But we won't see any draft of budgetary rates.
Not until June,
If this is approved.
unless you wanted to meet another time in May, unless you wanted more than another meeting. I'd love to, if you,
But
that sort of thing, I think would be great after mid-May.
the acceptance of this plan, just so it's clear, doesn't require, it is a separate issue from.
Exactly.
From the rate.
It's not tied to any rates.
This is a policy tool.
Policy tool, the rates will be,
Planning.
yeah, the rates, the recommended rates, even when those are before you, doesn't mean they've got to be accepted.
Right.
It's just,
It's a recommendation from the.
rates are based on this data.
So should we move our meeting back a couple of weeks before council?
I think anything after 13th would be good. I hadn't even thought about that.
Once again, the council dates are on your schedule if you want to use that for that.
That was at the end of the month, right?
Council, I think that'd be smart.
So we approved that for May 1st, that would go to council at the end of May.
27th. But if we moved our May 1st meeting back to the 15th, moved it 2 weeks out, we'd still have time to review this, and then we'd be able to see. I think it might be.
Will Will Dan be done by then, Tim? You feel?
We'll have something.
To mull over.
Again, one of the difficulties in it is, once it's adopted, is because you can't put, I don't know where the project, but you can't put all the projects on one rate study, because the cost will be just astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be just a matter of staff identifying, hey, these are the projects we're gonna do with these rates.
If we recommend this document at our next meeting, what day in May is that?
First,
May 1st, then it will go on the May
27th, the
agenda. So
council is in.
that timeline works.
Right, I'm just thinking of if we moved our meeting out, it might be a little more productive for us.
To see some rates,
Yeah.
see some numbers.
Might be a more productive meeting, that's all. Because we're all anxious to see rates and
Oh, can't wait.
numbers. I know Jim's losing sleep over it.
In proposing that there would be changes to the residential piece of that, that would flow through on the water bill. Correct.
And
Oh,
commercial.
boy,
Yeah.
you have to bring that up.
Yeah.
Not that I'd make this as a suggestion, but also on that schedule is a possible workshop meeting with council before you bring it back to council. So that is an option that you could
we could still do that after the council meeting. So, how do we do that? Change our date, make it,
We'll just make an amendment to Scott's motion. That we meet on the first of every month.
yeah, just push that first meeting back to, instead of meeting on May 1st, move on May 15th. We'd still be able to adopt this and start crunching numbers. And then after the council meeting, then you'd be able to set a workshop to discuss with council after we've had a chance to put our teeth into it.
Very smart.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Tim, are you pleased with Garver's report?
Very much so.
Did a good job.
Any comments?
I can definitely give my input, though. I'm renewing my vow, so that won't be.
You'll do what?
We're doing a vow renewal.
Are you really?
How many years?
20.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh, come
Last time would
on.
tolerate me that long.
She's a baby.
47.
Can't wait to get there.
Just tell him, it's reminding me out, kicked his coverage again.
No, I did. I promise you that.
It helps, I've got an extra copy of the original draft and second draft, if anybody wants.
Tim, what do you see as the,
Email
oh,
you.
I'm sorry, on these projects, pricing? Is inflation built into them?
There's a percentage in there. But we also have, when we do these, we have to be realistic. Are we really gonna go fix Boone Road for $25 million?
What percentage will you use, 3%, 4%?
I think it was 3.
3.
So like the, water and wastewater master plans, there'll be the near improvements, far, and then it's structured that way. That, because as you embrace, these are the projects we're gonna do, 3 or 4 years, there may be adjustment to that and go, hey, look, we're gonna put that on the back burner and do a different one, so. What we'll be focusing on is those near improvement projects to base the rate on.
Yeah, I would like to just be able to prioritize the things that, where water's coming into people's houses. That's really.
Sure.
Yeah, so on, it lists there how
They're
they're.
the major ones, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I already looked at
Yeah,
that.
this is how they scored the.
Yeah.
And that was based on resident input, FEMA input, insurance claims, the houses that had been reported to us, the 2017 report that Ted put together, so. And then, just a couple of years ago, we had a couple outliers there that have never seen water and all of a sudden had it in their house, so.
Yeah.
So where's our worst area right now, would you say, of town?
I would say we're doing a great job at mitigating stormwater right now. No, that list right there is the worst areas. And like I said, some of the problems is that it's private drainage. And I won't call it an excuse, but that's been the hang up. So that'll be something we have to navigate as we move forward.
So in the private situations, the developers just, they're
One of
not.
those ones, the HOAs and POAs were supposed to take care of the improvement districts. Funding fell apart and never did. But like I said, the problem.
Which also
City.
difficult in past experience planning commission is developers don't want to have to give up space that they could put a home on. Right. And they have, we require them to do a flood study to see how big of detention pond they have to build.
But I think planning commission's doing a little better job now of saying, you can't have 15 lots, you're gonna have to scale it back.
Well, that also has to do with ordinance on density.
There's mechanisms built into the various ordinances, stormwater specifically, that you cannot discharge more water than was originally coming in. And more times than not, we make them discharge less.
Is the city currently under code, does it require the developer to, once the subdivision is completed, deed to the city the retention?
No, right now they put them in improvement districts and the city does not take them.
Isn't that a problem
Yes.
historically?
Well, it's a problem either way, because we can't fund to take care of them right now.
Currently, you don't have money to maintain.
That's why
And then you
we
have
start
the,
putting into improvement districts, so a POA would be to clean that, take care of those facilities, because the city just didn't have the
Right.
funds to do it themselves.
But what's happening is in those situations, the problem's not getting,
In some,
So,
okay,
there are ones out there that are great about it, so.
okay.
But you have some builders who actually care. They won't live a
Oh, yeah.
life.
and part of it's an improvement district, the money's paid when you make your house payment. POA dues a lot harder to collect.
Yeah.
So improvement districts have proven to be more effective.
Funding. I'm not gonna pay that, you know. Nobody wants to pay taxes. But they want all the benefits of the city, but not pay taxes. That's why we hear so much stuff about when we have to look at the challenge we have. In my opinion, is developers want to build outside the city limits so they don't have to follow our city codes. Because at one time we had jurisdiction, how far out, Ted?
5 miles.
And now it's down to 1 mile?
Now it's gone.
Was it gone now? Because some legislative wanted it changed, so now you could build a mile out and you can build whatever you want to and big.
I don't know if this has been a problem in Bryant, but in a few cities I was involved with, it amazed me talking to citizens. They didn't even know that they were in a POA, or they never looked at their deed, or
Oh, gosh.
they remember some letter they got from somebody about dues. You know, they called the city. I've got this problem, and, you know,
We have the same situation here with private streets.
that's what I say, private streets are a big thing.
same thing, yeah.
And I said, is it not on your disclosure documents when you buy your house?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's one of the many little things on there.
Because at one time,
They're
we did
required to
not
maintain
have,
that street, yeah.
we did not have any street guidelines. And we had so much failure. And the city, they were finally put in some street requirements, and I don't know, do we have the failures like we did?
No, we don't have the failures like
Since
that.
we started the study done.
Now are roads we took over from the county. That's not the county's fault, it's just they were built in rural areas. Now they have subdivisions on them.
We didn't have stormwater guidelines until what year? We have stormwater guidelines in 10
When we started.
We updated them again in 2017.
Way back then, as a good old boy.
We're not gonna go there. Anybody got any comments?
I mean, it's always been a challenge.
Yes, we pay for the sins of our past.
That's right.
But, you
Any
know,
comments?
Thank you, guys.
Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I looked on my calendar, it's actually that Friday, that's the Thursday, so I might be.
You make it?
Oh, we can't do that. Do the vows.
Well,
Oh,
the vow is on Friday, so we're doing vows on Friday, and our youngest son's graduating on Saturday. We'll have family in.
Anybody see any rate numbers till after the 13th?
I'm excited for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, wow.
Good job, Tim.
It is, I know.
Okay, I did the math.
I'm